You know exactly what you need to do. You've known for days, maybe weeks. The deadline is right there, closing in like a slow wave you can see from the shore. And yet here you are, not doing it. Again. You've called yourself lazy, undisciplined. You've promised yourself tomorrow so many times the word has lost all meaning. But what if procrastination has nothing to do with laziness? What if your brain is doing this on purpose for a reason you've never been told? Here's what most people get wrong about procrastination. They think it's a time management problem, a scheduling failure, a character flaw. But a researcher at Carleton University named Timothy Pychyl spent over 2 decades studying people who procrastinate, and what he found flips the entire story. Procrastination is not a productivity problem. It's an emotion regulation problem. Your brain isn't avoiding the task, it's avoiding the feeling. Think about that for a second. You're not failing to manage your time, you're managing your emotions. And your brain has chosen the fastest way it knows how: escape. But escape from what? What feeling is so unbearable that your brain would rather destroy your deadline, your goals, your self-trust, than face it? It could be anxiety, it could be boredom, it could be frustration, self-doubt, fear of failure, fear of judgment. Sometimes it's something even simpler. The task just feels unpleasant, dull, heavy, and your brain reacts to that discomfort the same way it would react to a physical threat. That's not a metaphor, that's neuroscience. Inside your brain, there's a small almond-shaped structure called the amygdala. The amygdala is your threat detector. It's ancient. It evolved long before you had deadlines or email or taxes. Its job is to keep you alive by scanning for danger and triggering a response. And here's the problem. The amygdala doesn't distinguish between a charging predator and a spreadsheet that makes your chest tighten. Discomfort is discomfort. Threat is threat. When you sit down to do something that triggers even mild negative emotion, your amygdala fires. It sends a signal: this is dangerous, get away. And before your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for planning and rational decision-making, can override it, you've already picked up your phone. You've already opened a new tab. You've already started cleaning the kitchen with a motivation you haven't felt for the actual task in weeks. Your brain just hijacked you, and it did it in milliseconds. This is what psychologists call the amygdala hijack, a term popularized by Daniel Goleman. But Pychyl's research adds a crucial layer. The moment you switch to something pleasurable, scrolling, snacking, watching a video, your brain releases dopamine. You feel relief. And that relief is immediate, powerful, and deeply reinforcing. Your brain learns a lesson in real time. Avoiding the bad feeling works. Do it again. That's the trap. Procrastination feels good in the moment. That's why you keep doing it. It's not a failure of willpower. It's a successful dopamine cycle running in the wrong direction. But there's something even more interesting happening underneath. In the early 2000s, a psychologist named Hal Hershfield at UCLA started studying how your brain represents your future self. Using brain imaging, he found something unsettling. When people thought about themselves 10 years from now, their brain activity looked almost identical to when they thought about a stranger. Not their best friend, not their family, a stranger. Your brain literally does not believe that future you is you. So when someone says, "I'll do it tomorrow," what their brain is actually processing is, "A stranger will deal with this problem later. And why would you sacrifice your comfort right now for a stranger?" This is called temporal discounting, the tendency to value immediate rewards far more than future ones. A researcher named Piers Steele conducted a massive meta-analysis on procrastination, pulling together data from hundreds of studies. He found that temporal discounting was one of the single strongest predictors of procrastination. The further away the consequence, the less your brain cares. The closer the reward, the more it matters. That's why you don't start the project when it's assigned, but you suddenly become capable of superhuman focus at 11:47 p.m. the night before it's due. The consequence just became real. The amygdala is now afraid of the deadline instead of the task. And fear, it turns out, is a fantastic motivator, but only at the last possible second. You've probably noticed something else too. You don't procrastinate on everything equally. Some tasks you avoid for weeks, others you do without resistance. The difference usually isn't the task itself, it's what the task means to you. If a task feels tied to your identity, if failing at it would mean you're not smart enough, not talented enough, not good enough, your brain protects you by not starting. Can't fail if you never try. This is what psychologists call self-handicapping, and it's one of procrastination's cruelest tricks. You sabotage yourself to preserve the story you tell yourself about who you are. I could have done well if I'd had more time. Your brain would rather that sentence be true than risk finding out what happens if you actually try your best and still fall short. There's a researcher named Fuschia Sirois who studied the relationship between procrastination and self-compassion. What she found was striking. People who beat themselves up for procrastinating, who called themselves lazy, who felt shame, actually procrastinated more, not less. The shame created more negative emotion. More negative emotion triggered more avoidance. More avoidance created more shame. A perfect loop. But people who responded to their own procrastination with understanding, this is hard, and it makes sense that I'm avoiding it, those people recovered faster. They returned to the task sooner. Self-compassion broke the cycle. That sounds almost too simple, but it maps directly onto what we know about the amygdala. Shame is a threat. Threat triggers avoidance. Compassion reduces the threat. Reduced threat means less avoidance. Your brain doesn't need a drill sergeant. It needs to feel safe enough to start. Now here's the part that might surprise you. You already know this. You've experienced it 1,000 times. The task you've been avoiding for hours, the one that felt impossibly heavy. Once you actually start, it's never as bad as your brain promised. Sometimes it's even enjoyable. You finish and think, why didn't I just do this earlier? That gap between how bad your brain predicts the task will feel and how it actually feels is called the effective forecasting error. Your brain is terrible at predicting the intensity and duration of future emotions. It consistently overestimates how painful the task will be and underestimates how satisfying completion will feel. So your procrastination is based on a lie, not a moral lie. A neurological one. Your brain is giving you bad data, and you keep trusting it. Every single time. There's one more piece of this puzzle that rarely gets talked about. In a 2022 study published in the journal Psychological Science, researchers found that chronic procrastination is associated with reduced volume in a specific part of the prefrontal cortex, the very region responsible for overriding the amygdala's alarm signals. The more you chronically procrastinate, the weaker that override system can become. That's not meant to scare you. It's meant to reframe what's happening. Procrastination isn't just a habit. It's a pattern that physically reshapes the balance of power inside your brain. The amygdala gets louder, the prefrontal cortex gets quieter, and each cycle makes the next one slightly easier to fall into. But neuroplasticity works in both directions. The same way repeated avoidance strengthens the avoidance circuit, repeated starting, even tiny, imperfect, reluctant starting strengthens the action circuit. You don't need to feel motivated. You don't need to feel ready. You just need to begin badly. Start for 2 minutes. Start with the worst version. Start with the smallest possible piece. Researchers call this the 2-minute rule, and the evidence behind it is consistent. Action doesn't follow motivation. Motivation follows action. Once you start, the amygdala recalibrates. The threat signal fades. The prefrontal cortex comes back online. And suddenly you're working, not because you conquered your brain, but because you tricked it into seeing that the danger was never real. So the next time you find yourself staring at a task, feeling that familiar pull toward anything else, your phone, your fridge, that one YouTube video that has nothing to do with what you need to do, pause for just a moment. Notice what you're feeling. Name it. Boredom, fear, frustration, doubt. Then tell yourself the truth your brain won't. You're not lazy, you're not broken, you're not weak. Your brain is just trying to protect you from a threat that doesn't exist. And the only way to prove it wrong is to begin.